for folks who may not know, just in case you know that some of this might be new, you may heard of this term called the Confederacy.
Hmm.
All right, the Confederacy. Now, what's funny to me, Jacoby, is that the Confederacy only lasted from 1861 to 1865.
Hmm.
I mean, we're talking about 4 years.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we've had TV shows that have lasted longer than the Confederacy. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, literally 4 years
Yep.
of American history.
Hmm.
Like, people think the Confederacy was 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years. 4 years. That's the Confederacy.
That's it. This was like a very brief moment in time, but let's be clear about what it was about. It started
Yes.
because of secession, right? So as these states are seceding from the Union, they have not yet formed a confederacy. And one of the points of motivation for them to succeed is for the preservation of slavery through states' rights. And each of them are quoting that state after state, first South Carolina, then Mississippi, then Florida, then Texas, right? So it's going on in that manner until you have 11 states that have done it. And there were originally, I think, 7 of the states, not all 11 of them, but 7 of them came out first for a while, and then 4 more joined later. And so that, is how we ended up with the 11 states.
So
Right.
now we're in April, Jacoby,
Hmm.
and you from Mississippi.
I'm from Mississippi.
And this has been happening for decades, but I think it's important to acknowledge this in 2024 because Demon Seed Governor Tate Reeves likes to get all this credit and likes to remind people, well, he took the Confederate flag off the state flag. So I guess he thinks that absolves him of his bullshit. I'm not even going to get into the allegations of, welfare fraud and scandal and the water crisis, whatever.
Hmm.
But this month,
Hmm.
the month of April,
Hmm.
is Confederate Heritage Month
Hmm.
in Mississippi.
Hmm.
And earlier this month, Governor Tate Reeves proudly celebrated Confederate Heritage Month. What the F is going on? And explain how disrespectful this is,
Yeah.
especially to your direct ancestors from the Magnolia State.
Hmm. So, first of all, we have to think about going back to the beginning, right? That we just talked about with the Confederacy and what it meant. These were the blackest states in the country at the time, and they continue to be the blackest states in the country. So we're thinking about Mississippi being the blackest state by percentage, then maybe Louisiana, then maybe South Carolina, right? These were also the states that were majority black states, right? During the Reconstruction years, and even during, if you want to look at it, during antebellum years, as enslaved persons outnumbered white folks, right? And so these states have a legacy of fear of Black people taking over, right? Or Negro domination is a term. If you are able to look at a book called The Facts of Reconstruction, written by John R. Lynch, who was
My man,
Mississippi's,
John R. Lynch. Look him
yeah,
up,
that's
y'all.
right,
Good
Mississippi's
dude. Good dude.
historic first
Although his wife
supervisor.
was a little bit weird, but read that in the grift. Just his
Yeah,
wife was a little
yeah,
strange.
yeah.
Go ahead, brother. I'm
But
sorry.
you'll see Black men who actually did participate in Reconstruction government while you had this kind of interracial or majority Black voter base. And what I mean by majority Black voter base is the registered voters of the states of Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina were Black people, and they were turning out to vote in like record numbers. And not only were they turning out to vote, they were electing folks to Black folks. So let's look at this word heritage that
Mm,
Governor Reeves has like chosen to use rather than history. Mississippi's the
right.
only state that's using Confederate heritage.
Heritage.
Other states are maybe saying Confederate history, and then they all have Confederate Memorial Day, right? But Mississippi choosing heritage is a way to show that you've not lost something, and this is
Mm,
something material that you can like pass down, or maybe an idea that you can pass down, or maybe both things, right? And that to me is a clear distinction in the way that other states are recognizing it, and how Mississippi feels the most threatened by it because it's the blackest state by percentage, of losing this heritage of like being this white state that's controlled by white men, right? And this ruling class. And so Those are reasons why I think Governor Reeves, again, a person who barely won this election by, cheating the residents of Hinds County and, um, having the Delta not have access to education or polling, locations
Mm,
and underreporting, right, of these types of issues. You can hear that in Jackson where there's media, but you don't hear anything in the Delta what's going on, right? And what's been going on since we know Fannie Lou Hamer got the national spotlight and told us what
that's
happens
right.
there, right?
That's
So
right.
the state of Mississippi is a state that is very close to being broken, right?
Mm.
Because of people being tired and being oppressed and wanting change. And so there's this narrative where folks just kind of think Mississippi can just write it off and it's a place where people are just complacent. They're not. People are like, I've never seen a more persistent people that just try anything to try to change it, right?
Do you see similarities to the end of Reconstruction? Do you think that if, God forbid, Trump got into office, that we could see a serious rollback of our civil rights and our right to exist, similar to what happened to black folks at the end of Reconstruction?
Yeah. So first I want to say that Reconstruction was never um a utopian moment, right?
Very
It
true.
was severely violent, like
Yes, yes,
extremely
yes,
violent and
yes.
dangerous, right? Because what you have is people who were openly members of society who were known veterans, Union Army veterans that, they killed white people. And we forget about how the Emancipation Proclamation is this way that black soldiers are able to enlist in the Union Army to defeat the Confederacy, and then
Exactly.
they are remaining in Mississippi and
They have to live
Georgia
with
and
them.
right. So
Yeah.
they become the leaders of this new interracial society, right? If you could call it that, but that's what I'm using for, sake of better words. So I want us to be clear that, Reconstruction was never this like great golden, time in the sun,
We
right?
all we romanticize it. You're
Yeah,
right. We totally
it was
do. Yeah, yeah,
very, very violent.
yeah.
However, there was a window of legal opportunity, right? That I think you can't see this socially, maybe not even, maybe economically, you can make an argument for it because you get this black middle class that comes, right? But I think when this period ends, it's more about the legal rights and how you're able to write out or nullify or neutralize the Reconstruction Amendments. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
It's funny, we call it Reconstruction Acts then, but now we can just say they're trying to roll back Civil Rights Acts. They're trying to roll back the Civil Rights Act. They've gutted the Voting Rights Act. They want to end the Fair Housing Act. All these things. It's the same damn
The
blueprint,
same thing,
nearly.
or Brown, right? Or
Brown
you
versus Board.
look at
Yeah.
Brown and the governor in Alabama who's trying to stand in front of the students who want to, integrate the school. It's the same. So it's white supremacy is not creative. And people
Mm.
argue against me that it is, and I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's
if you
not.
look, if you look at
Hitler copied
history,
Jim Crow.
yes, they use the same tactics every time. I play chess. So
Yeah.
as a chess player, I'm able to recognize different strategies and tactics over a pattern, right? And as a historian, I'm able to look at these patterns and I'm a
Yeah.
19th century historian, but when I look at the 20th century, I'm like, this is the same thing. You didn't do anything
Is
different.
I think Trump is arguably the most dangerous president that we've had. And the reason why I say this, Jacoby, you might
Mhm.
disagree, is because as much as Andrew Johnson is demon C trash, I can't stand him. Andrew Jackson as well. Even some of those old school folks. Nixon was trash. They still
Reagan.
had Reagan horrible, the worst, whatever. But with all that said, they still had a basic respect for the quote unquote Constitution.
Mhm.
They didn't want to overthrow democracy, right? If Reagan would have lost his second term, he would have conceded, right? Andrew Johnson gets impeached. The Democratic Party at the time doesn't reinstall him. Like there's a basic respect where okay, I believe in this thing called the Constitution. I'm not going to try to overthrow it. I'm not going to make this Andrew Johnson USA. I'm not going to make this Harry Truman USA. For that reason alone, I think that Trump is dangerous because he's not campaigning, he's plotting to win. And if he wins, I think he will do whatever he can via Project 2025 to never leave the presidency again. Do you agree with me that I think for that reason he is deeply dangerous?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree with you that I think he's very dangerous, right? Eminently dangerous. I don't
Mm-hmm.
agree with your reason, and here's why.
Mm.
I think that Trump is dangerous whether he wins or loses, right?
Mm.
And so I think we're at a point in time where it doesn't
Mm.
matter what the outcome of this election is going to be because we've seen what he's going to do if he wins or loses. We've seen it in both circumstances. We've seen what president he is when he won, right? If you think of that 2016 election as legitimate, right? We saw what he did and how he carried out, you know, his executive duties in that role. We saw when he lost and what he did, right? So we shouldn't be surprised about anything, that Trump would do if he wins or loses. And so I think
But if he loses, he has less power. If he loses, we have guardrails. I
if
mean,
he
if
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 he
he
if he loses, I think that we find ourselves in the situation where, people are violent, right? So people like Biden won in 1874, right?
Mm.
And so then what happened? Because of the fact that white supremacy lost, look at how redemption came about. So redemption didn't start in 1877. It started because Grant won a second election, right? It
Mm-hmm.
started because these black folks got reelected or were electing more folks, right? So when we think of this like white nationalist backlash, it comes with black success or progress or
Mm.
this thought of like a black win. So I don't necessarily see this pattern of when white folks win or when nationalists win that there's like a more increase in violence is usually when they lose. That's when you see them
Mm.
ratchet up their violence even more, right? And
Mm.
so that is another thing about Reconstruction that we don't talk enough about in my eyes is how that there were white folks who were working with black folks to create this kind of black and white coalition.
Yeah,
We
there
think
were.
of
There
the
were.
Black and Tan Convention, right? How they
Yeah.
pejoratively called that. But you see white folks getting slaughtered, right? For
Yeah,
working
it's
with
true.
black people. And
It's true.
you see them getting run
Because
out of
even
the
in white
street.
supremacy, white people can be disposable if you don't toe the
Exactly.
line. I
And
try and tell
but
people
but
that.
but but here's the issue with the white progressives or white liberal, ideas. They live in this kind of utopian world where they don't see this violence because of progress, because of societal progress or black advancement or whatever you want to think of as any kind of advancement in society, we get the backlash, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't own that. They don't own the fact of, well, yeah, if we win and we pass these Bernie Sanders type of ideas, right?
Oh, not
How that's
Bernie.
going to lead to how that's going to lead to so much violence, right? Because
But
we see that
but
over and over
Jacoby,
and over and over.
I hear you, but you said it doesn't matter if he wins or loses. I think it does matter if he wins.
Mm,
I think it does matter. I think that if 1930s Germany would have not elected Adolf Hitler, I think it does matter. And the thing that I'll say, we have to go soon. I'll let you close this
and
out.
for the record,
I think.
I don't, I,
Oh, I know.
yeah,
No, you're
Trump
talking
in
about
any
the
way.
broader
Yeah,
implications of
yeah.
white nationalism. I get
I
it, and you're
think that
right.
there
And
will be
listen to
consequences
to your
either way.
point, when Barry Goldwater loses, you still have schools, churches being bombed.
Hmm.
You have Dr. King assassinated. You have
Right.
Bobby Kennedy assassinated. So I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
The one thing that I would say that's different than the 1870s or even the 1960s is we have a different electorate now. We have women who could vote. We have
Mhm.
more immigrants here. I know they don't all vote the same. We have more brown people here. I think that there was a much different electorate back then. So we have we have more black folks in Congress. You know, we have the Jamal Bowmans and Ayanna Presleys.
Mhm.
So even I like Cory Booker. I think that there's more power that we have where if we can maintain this power, if we can get more control over the Senate, we can regain the House, that we can put in laws that will see to it we don't go back to
Yeah.
the 1870s or even the 1960s. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that, that our power is different?
I think that the disbursement of the power does isn't the same. Remember, during Reconstruction, they started at the state level and were
True.
using the state government to advance, these rights, while the federal government was like off in DC, not even in a place that was
Mm,
being reconstructed, right?
mm,
And so this idea of state building is what I think is the answer. We need to go to the
mm.
states
And we
and
don't
use
have that in
the state
Mississippi.
to de-arm,
Mm,
right, these folks who
mm,
are using state government. That's
mm,
what they're using. I wouldn't necessarily, well, we know the federal government has been like doing some shady stuff to black people too, right? But when we
mm.
think about what white nationalism does, their weapon of choice is the state government. That's what they want to
Absolutely.
use.
So we have to
And
get a
and
hold of
that's
that
why
as
we
well.
got Tate Reeves doing. That's why we're having this conversation. It's not
Right,
because it's
right,
something
right.
that's happening in DC.